From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report in Special English. Syria's Prime Minister recently said his country will search for alternative markets to secure medicines. Medical drugs are in short supply because of the conflict between supporters and opponents of President Bashar al-Assad. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is trying to crush the revolt against his rule. The violence has raised an outcry in Western countries and some Arab states. The European Union and the United States have placed sanctions on the Syrian government as a result of the violence. But these sanctions are also having a negative effect. Medicine is in short supply. The Prime Minister has said his country will go east in search of new providers of medicine. Recently, he said Syria will look to China, Iran, Korea, Latin America, and Russia for some medicines. He added that a number of international organizations are cooperating with the Syrian government to provide necessary drugs. The World Health Organization said in August that many of the main drug makers in Syria have closed down. This has caused severe shortages of medicines for treating chronic diseases. Syria's health minister said the most needed drugs are hormonal treatments and cancer medicines. Syria used to produce most of its medicines and drugs before the violence started. 90% of Syria's pharmaceutical factories are in the provinces of Aleppo, Homs, and Damascus. They have suffered damage from the fighting. The World Health Organization also says production has been hurt from a lack of raw materials and higher fuel costs. Some hospitals and health centers have stopped operating because of a lack of workers or supplies. Others have been damaged or taken over by fighters. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report in Special English. About half of all people live in countries that are low or lower middle income. But these countries have more than 85% of all cases of epilepsy. Medical experts say this is probably because of the higher rates of brain infections and head injuries that can cause the disorder. People in developing countries are also more likely to die of untreated epilepsy than people in richer countries. Deaths often result from a series of seizures. The Lancet Medical Journal in Britain just published a special issue on epilepsy in the world's poorer regions. The report explains that epilepsy can be inherited. It can also be caused by infections, birth traumas, head injuries, or strokes. Epilepsy can affect people in different ways. He or she may have hallucinations, lose consciousness, or go stiff, fall down, and begin to shake violently. People with epilepsy have a hard time finding jobs or spouses. In some societies, families may be avoided if one of their members has epilepsy. But the Lancet points out that epilepsy can often be controlled with medicine that does not cost very much. According to the report, seizures can be controlled or reduced with medicine that costs between $5 and $10 a year. In poorer areas of the world, health professionals are working to help people get access to these drugs and manage the side effects of the medicines. People with epilepsy often do not know that they have it or that it can be controlled with medicine. So, health professionals say their first aim is to educate people about the disorder. The Lancet report says that prevention efforts could reduce the number of epilepsy cases in Africa by half. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
This is the VOA Special English Health Report. In December, doctors in Mumbai, India, reported about a group of patients with what they called totally drug-resistant tuberculosis. Indian health officials have been investigating these cases. But there have been reports of untreatable cases of TB in the past. Doctors reported 15 patients in Iran in 2009 and 2 patients in Italy in 2007. Tuberculosis is a bacterial disease that usually targets the lungs. It causes an estimated 5,000 deaths each day, or about 2 million a year. Some forms of TB bacteria no longer react to one or more of the antibiotics commonly used to cure the disease. These are known as drug-resistant strains. Some resist even more drugs. The World Health Organization says 69 countries have reported cases of extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. The WHO says at least 25,000 such cases are reported worldwide every year. The agency's Director General, Dr. Margaret Chan, is concerned about the spread of drug-resistant TB. She says, "Call it what you may, a time bomb or a powder keg. Any way you look at it, this is a potentially explosive situation." Officials say drug-resistant TB has been a growing problem in countries like India and China. In many cases, doctors misdiagnose patients or give them the wrong treatment or not enough treatment. Misuse of these antibiotics increases the danger that the bacteria will develop resistance to the drugs. Neeraj Mistry is a public health doctor. He says surveys show that very few Indian doctors are treating TB patients with the right drugs for the right length of time. Another problem is that patients may not take all of their medicine. The emergence of totally resistant TB is a result of failed public health intervention strategies. When we deliver ineffective treatment regimens, and when we don't have full adherence and compliance to treatment, it enables the emergence of resistance within the individual. The WHO says new, stronger TB drugs could be available by the end of this year or early 2013. Researchers are also working on vaccines to prevent the disease. Dr. Ann Ginsberg works at the Eris Global TB Vaccine Foundation. She says the development process takes a long time, partly because people often do not get sick for years after getting infected with TB. So when you do a vaccine trial, you have to vaccinate people and watch them for years. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report in Special English. Scientists are criticizing a study that said laboratory rats developed tumors after they ate genetically modified corn. The research appears in the journal Food and Chemical Toxicology and includes pictures of rats with large tumors. The study said the animals developed the growths after 2 years of being fed genetically changed maize. Gilles-Éric Seralini was the lead author for the research paper. He is with the University of Caen in France. He says genetically modified or GM foods have not been studied carefully. However, several French scientific organizations and the European Food Safety Authority dispute the study. One genetic expert with the National Academy of Sciences in the United States says the rats in the study were genetically predisposed to form tumors. Alison Van Eenanum is with the University of California, Davis. She suggests that the study was an attempt to scare the public. She said, "I think it was a cynical ploy to exploit the scientific process to create fear in the minds of consumers." Even some opponents of GM food agree there were problems with the study methods. Michael Hansen, with the group Consumers Union, says there should be more long-term studies and more rules for GM foods. Safety studies or assessments are voluntary when companies ask the government to approve new GM crops. These assessments often include 90-day rat feeding tests. This is the international standard. Experts say longer studies have not found major problems. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.